Hello, welcome to the Temple of Universality's TV show, Steps Beyond Time. And I am honored to be here with the founder of the Temple of Universality, Reverend Betty Tatalajski. And for my own edification and for yours, I have a question. What are we going to talk about?
I was afraid you were going to ask that.
Well, as you know, we don't have to talk about it, or we'll start out talking about it.
The word today is possession.
Oh, possession. Okay.
Not about things.
Okay.
But,
my mind went there as a default.
Did it?
Yes.
Surely we wouldn't talk about
Right.
this,
Okay.
right? But I do want to talk about it. It's a scary word. There are a lot of words out here that scare us, and that's certainly one of them, isn't it? And you know what? Probably I'd be talking about something else if it weren't for my latest copy of Ladies' Home Journal.
Okay.
Okay?
I haven't seen it.
I know. Well, I did, and there's this lovely woman here in this picture, and the article is just called schizophrenia. Okay? Now, that's a fancy word. It's actually an expensive word, too. But it really means possession, okay? I know there are a lot of people out here who have paid a lot of money and gone through a lot of ritual and listened for hours, while they've been talked to, who don't want to hear this. But friends, it's so true. It's the reason I really wanted to talk about it, because it says right up here on the front page that there are 2.5 million people diagnosed, and this means the people that are being treated for it. Okay, it doesn't mean all the other sensitive people in the country. I think this is the U.S. Who hear voices who are not being treated. And what she says, this young woman says about it, she says, "Let me tell you what it's like to have schizophrenia."
Wow.
And she said, they are, these voices are very real to me. I hear voices. And things that people have this, that are diagnosed, okay, the voices are very real. The people are paranoid, they commit violent crimes, and they commit suicide. And that certainly is true. Of course, there are so many other people that hear voices too, and most of them get along terribly, I'm sure, very painfully, because they can't be in this, get the drugs perhaps. But we want to talk about possession, schizophrenia, and freedom, and that it is a choice, and that it really shouldn't be a curse, because generally, and I'm certainly no psychologist, generally the people that we meet who hear voices, whether they've been to classified or not, on meds and so forth, they're generally very kind people, very kind people. So many children, especially, show signs of having little unseen friends. So many do, or animal friends and so forth. And we just think they'll grow out of it. And thankfully, many do. But we simply don't realize the sensitivity of some humankind who are coming in mass into the world. So many are coming into the United States because here in the Western world, there are great souls coming from higher realms of consciousness, especially for this age of Aquarius, and they have been waiting perhaps eons of time, not twiddling their thumbs, but living throughout the universe, this universe and others, and just waiting for the time to be ushered in to Aquarius. And we might extend that on to southern Arizona because this Aquarian state is where a lot of highly evolved souls are coming. Some are being born here, many are being inner guided here, and we want to pay attention to people who say they hear voices. Now, generally, we hear about them when they are in pain, or whether sometimes somebody has complained about them, they hear voices, okay? We hear that a lot. Well, you know, I've been pondering this for several days since I read the article, and I was thinking, you know, perhaps if more of these people went to a real psychic, there's a great difference between people who say they're psychics and really spiritual mediums. Great difference, friends. Take that point. There's a difference between what we call stomach psychics,
who are able to feel, but they don't have the understanding and foundation.
No, and it has no. And many of these people who are psychic need some spiritual development themselves, okay? And that's another show. But there are, and they are pretty few thus far, of very good spiritual mediums who can help these folks. I'm sure there's no guarantee about that. It is rather, I would say, a new field, except that I know it isn't. Okay? It isn't a new field, because if you go in the Bible and read the book of Samuel, let's see, it's chapter 28, and it's a whole chapter on psychism and mediums, okay? Now, most of you, many of you, have heard about King Saul, the night before he died, was looking for a psychic. He was looking for a psychic. Bring me a psychic. And they said, well, no, you kill them all. We had to kill them all, remember?
Under your orders.
Under your orders. Well, I know that one escaped, so find that person. And, of course, they did. They called her the Witch of Endor, this beautiful medium, and he convinced her that it wouldn't kill her.
Okay. That's right.
And remember the story. I mean, we were all taught it, how she goes into trance and Samuel comes in. Samuel, I believe, is the one who...
The prophet.
The prophet.
The prophet comes into her, okay.
Yeah, the prophet comes in. I believe he is the one who had already given him the crown, you know. And he says, what'd you bother me for? And he says, well, you know, I need a question answered. I need what's going on tomorrow in the battlefield. And short version is, he said, you'll be here with me tomorrow, and your sons also. It wasn't the answer he wanted, but he didn't kill the medium, so that was good. So this has been going on forever, I presume. So it's not a new thing, but you would think in this time...
I would think, though, Betty, just to make it...
years later.
But to make a distinction, the wonderful Witch of Endor, who had this vision and was able to tap into this field of knowledge,
yes,
had a very different experience with voices than the lady who talked about hearing voices that wanted her to commit violent crimes and were paranoid.
And of course,
All
we
right.
know the difference.
Yes, we know the difference.
The difference is this woman was talking to a very high level. Now, this Samuel was an elevated soul. This great prophet was an elevated soul. When he made transition, he was not playing around the netherworld here with murderers and such folks.
Sure.
Okay, But we know that when you make transition, breathe your last breath. Of course, there is no death. No one has ever died, nor will they. But you breathe that, and you go into exactly the
Where you are.
level of frequency where you are.
If you've been hanging out in bars, if you've been getting in fights after school, and if you're looking to do that, you're going to run into the same type of consciousness.
Friends.
Yes.
You're going to be very popular.
Yes.
Because they like new friends.
Yes.
Okay?
You're going to find the same level as when you were here. And if you've been working on yourself, on consciousness, on trying to elevate your place here, you will find like souls when you go at that level.
You will have lovely friends.
Pick your level,
And
friends.
of course,
Yeah.
we
do.
We suggest that you become, in a way, a modern yogi. It means connecting with, yoking, as it were, the spirit, mind, body, and moving into this frequency right here. A lot of yogis, you see, will have a spot right here. It's a good thing. You know, I think I'll do that because it reminds you, oh, I've got to go sit in meditation. And then with meditation, prayer, and service, this becomes a lovely triangle that you can see into the higher realms, and you can be a blessing to the world. And so when you meet people who are called schizophrenic, you can allow those great ones from that position, from that level of consciousness, to talk directly. And they probably would say to you that, you know, you're a great soul yourself, but you have cosmic amnesia. You don't remember what you're here for. It's interesting. It seems like when you're born and the baby, they slap it on the butt, it brings on cosmic amnesia, because these souls, all of us, have a great purpose, and we forget it right away, and we begin, as Spirit says, that blasphemy that you are only human. And I remember Cardinal Newman saying several times, Cardinal John Henry Newman, he says, if there were a sin, it would be blasphemy, and that blasphemy would be the denial of your divinity, for there is no one come into existence that is not a perfect piece of the Creator.
Yep.
So it isn't possible to be less than that, okay?
It's possible to think you are.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's even more possible to see others that way.
Absolutely. Now, we must admit that you do come in from different places and different levels, and worlds and universes with some baggage, generally. Now, there are some pure souls who are coming in amongst us, but most of us have a history and
are here to work it up.
Right, and as Spirit calls it, a little dust on your feet.
Yes.
And that dust is karma.
Yes.
And so you have chosen situations that you will have opportunities to rectify.
To balance, to work
balance.
off. I mean, even like disease, Betty. You've known that with some highly evolved soul, and they end up with cancer, and everybody's doing healing and prayer.
Yes.
And they've come back to you and told you what?
Well, a lot of times they tell you it was for you, and because of your prayers, you have elevated your own consciousness here, and now you are really into some enlightened field because I broke your heart. And Spirit talks about that a lot. They say a lot of times children or great souls over here will come in and to a marriage or not, and come in and so adored. So, of course, the most beautiful child in the world, mine were, and then live a few months, or a few breaths.
Yes.
I'll tell you, you will go to your knees.
Yeah.
And Spirit says, if you haven't been on your knees in pain and ask, you don't know that. But I have met so many in the spirit world who have come in, like Sally Phillips, our minister, Sally Phillips. She had a sister who came in for about a year, just about 2 years before Sally was born. And she came in the first time we went to Camp Chesterfield, and she's waiting to hear her teachers and guides and all. The very first person came through was Elizabeth. And she says, I'm your sister Elizabeth. And she says she thought she was her nun because everybody has a healing nun with them if they live in the Western world.
And her sister Elizabeth died when, how old was Sally?
She was probably about a year.
Oh, so very early. Yeah, so she didn't know her.
Oh,
she was a baby.
Of course she didn't know her.
Yeah, she was a baby.
And so she says, well, I don't even know you.
Yeah.
Her sister Elizabeth says, said Sally,
Yeah.
I just came in to apologize to you. And Sally said, well, you didn't have to do that because I don't even know you. And she says, on a soul level you do. On a soul level, because we are so close. And she said, and you have a divine mission, which she certainly has been teaching in Kuwait for 12 years. And you have this mission and ministry. And I wanted to clear this soul problem. And Sally says, I don't know how that works because I don't know you. I don't. And she says, but on a soul level, you do. And so I wanted to explain to you. She said, the resentment that you don't even know that you have.
Isn't that something?
She said, when you volunteered or recruited for this job that you had to be prepared for, and I'll tell you, she has had some preparation, okay? She said, you didn't want to come in. You wanted the mission, but you were hesitant. And I told you, I will come in first. It was like jumping in a swimming pool.
Yeah.
I will go in first, and I will show you how easy it is.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since you were there. So she came in. She says, but Sally, I didn't tell you I wasn't going to stay. And on a soul level, you have had a little grit, you know, in here.
Yeah, like where'd she go?
Where'd she go?
Yeah.
Only a fool believes the obvious.
Yeah.
It is much deeper than that.
It's much deeper.
So we want to honor, respect people who are coming in mass, who are psychically evolved.
No, more open.
More open.
More receptive.
More receptive.
Which is easy and hard. It makes it better and harder.
Now, my own daughter came in psychic. I didn't know people were psychic. I thought it was some kind of if there was anything psychic, it was some magician on a stage. But it was totally new to me. And of course, I had no idea that she was hearing things that I didn't hear.
Sure.
So it wasn't easy for her. It was a long time, actually, before I discovered that a lot of kids her age were coming in the same way and having this difficulty. Spirit told me in the year 1980 that about Karen and about these sensitive people who have come in to be a gift to the world, and it's scary. If they told their mothers,
Yeah.
you know, we would collapse because we public opinion and what we
Our fears.
our limited awareness.
Yeah.
But then
It's not right to call it understanding. It's so limited.
no.
Yeah.
So
Our ignorance.
I didn't know that at that time there was a large group and probably an intro group coming in for this time, and I certainly didn't know that because, you know, I knew a lot of the parents of a lot of young people who were as psychologists say, maladjusted, and they were, as I always call it, playing the shell game of who do we blame for this unhappy child. But I would prefer that this woman who is condemned and writes pages and book on it, on her disabilities, would talk to a lovely
Somebody who understood
medium,
it. Yes.
who could access, as Reverend Christine Fassetti does there at the temple,
Yeah.
could just say, who are you?
Yes.
Come in and let's talk right now.
Yes.
And see what the problem is, and tell this person who you are and what you're here for.
Well, you know, Betty,
know?
it reminds me, because I know Christine can do it. I know psychics can do it. It reminds me that
There are three that I could name
in Tucson.
In
Yeah,
Tucson.
who could
there
do
are
this?
three who could do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because I had read this book, and this wasn't a psychic, but she was extraordinarily aware. She was born in India, so she had a background of mysticism,
Of spiritualism.
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 Yeah, spiritualism, truly, that we don't understand.
Right.
Okay? She came to the United States, became a board-certified psychiatrist, board-certified. As she said, she did all the things a psychiatrist did.
She had to. She suffered a lot.
Yeah. And she said that's what she was doing. But what happened is she ran into a patient, all right, who had all these problems, and
she had to be honest.
Oh, yes, she was right
She
there.
had to go honest.
Yes.
And ask who they are.
Well, what happened is, it happened to her.
Oh.
The person went into a spontaneous hypnotic trance.
So she didn't have to.
No, she didn't have to set it up. Into a spontaneous hypnotic trance. It's a book called Remarkable Awakenings by Dr. Mahdi, M-A-H-D-I, okay? So she's doing traditional therapy. This person goes into a spontaneous trance, and the psychiatrist, she said, she realized she wasn't talking to her patient anymore.
Oh, I think I heard about that.
Yes, she wasn't talking to her patient.
That easy,
Yes.
friends. They want you to know.
Yes.
They want you to know who this person is,
Yes.
why they came here,
Yes.
the gifts that they brought to
Yes.
the world, the truth and the elevated consciousness they brought to the world.
Yes.
There are many thousands
Yes.
of them here, and more are coming in, because it is
that time.
The veil has been rent from the Piscean age of emotionalism. We were talking about that recently. The time for emotionalism and working from the stomach chakra is no more, folks. It's time to bring some light on a subject that has subjected a lot of people
As
to
dark
a lot
as this,
of pain.
a lot of pain.
And she's such a lovely
Yes.
woman. But let me tell you what it's like to have schizophrenia, she said. And it is very, very painful. We would not, as St. Paul says in covers two chapters, I would not have you ignorant. And so people say, how can you do this from the podium? How can you talk about voices and so forth? I said, well, because it's time. It's past time that people are suffering, being told and riddled by voices, fear. And fear is a very low consciousness, okay? Fear can kill you. You can be scared to death. And that's what she's talking about. The voices told me to kill myself. And she said, if I had had enough nerve, if I wasn't so scared,
She would have.
I would have done it, because I was trying to anything to quiet the voices. And I'm trying to get up the nerve to kill myself. Now this is the complete article, and she is still living like
In
this,
that.
even though she's on this and this and this and this. Okay.
To try and control it.
It's past time, friends. As Spirit says, time for
Time for the light.
Time for the light.
11 o'clock every Sunday at the Temple of Universality, the corner of Country Club. And Prince, you're welcome.
We just get started.